Hello, welcome to another lesson in our unit about front office environment. Today's lesson is about creating a professional space and a welcoming space for your patients to come into. Make sure you have a copy of your learning log open and you are ready to get started. So your warm-up for this lesson. For your warm-up activity, predict 2 steps for opening a PT facility and predict 2 steps for closing a PT facility. Go ahead and complete that and meet me back here. Our objectives for this lesson, we're going to list tips for maintaining a positive tone in an office environment, identify office opening techniques, office closing techniques, and also what to do during service hours. So you are often the first face a patient or a vendor or anyone who comes into your facility interacts with or sees when they walk in. Whether you are working in the front office or back office, you can set the tone for the environment in your facility. So you have the power over whether you work in a welcoming place or a place where patients don't feel welcome. So you could be the determining factor about whether or not a patient comes back. So that's kind of empowering, but also a big responsibility. So here are some tips for creating a positive working environment. Always greet every patient with a smile, whether you're on the phone or in person. And make sure that even if you're busy, just acknowledging your patient when a patient walks in, acknowledging them with a look or a wave lets them know that you care about them being in your facility. Leave any of your personal business outside of work. So this is no place for rumors, for the argument that you're having with your boyfriend or girlfriend. Just really try to leave anything like that outside of the office. Never discuss personnel changes, like if someone gets fired, or new company policies maybe that you don't agree with, or complaints about where you work with a patient, or talk about it where a patient could hear. Always be kind of aware that whenever you are talking about something like that, something that you maybe wouldn't want a patient to overhear, where you are, how loud you're speaking, just be aware of those things. Focus on the positive aspects of your job. So really, even if you disagree with a company policy or you're going through a season at work that's particularly hard or challenging, really try as best you can to focus on the positive aspects, because that can really make or break a positive working environment. Compliment your coworkers and always lift them up in front of patients. I had a physical therapist that I worked with that was really good at this. She always would, she was like my personal hype man. She would talk up and say all these nice things about me right before the patient was going to start working with me. And I think that really helps instill confidence in your patient and them working with that colleague. So it's always a good thing to do. And then last, maintain a welcoming and friendly workspace. We're going to talk about ways that you can do that, things that you need to be thinking about and doing before your facility opens, and then to help your front office staff the next day, you want to make sure you do these things before you close. So let's talk about that. Before we get to that though, on your learning log, can you please add 3 tips for creating a positive office environment? So opening a facility. In order to get everything ready for the day, we typically recommend that the front office or whoever is helping in the front office should arrive at least 20 minutes before the first scheduled appointment. Following action should be performed when opening the facility before patients arrive. So you're going to unlock the door, but then you're going to lock it behind you so that patients don't accidentally come in before you're ready for them. And you want to unlock all the doors within your facility to make sure that you have access to wherever you need to get to and that everything is accessible. Turn on all equipment, so turn on computers, turn on any clinical machines that you would need to use. Just get everything ready to go. Do a visual check of the facility. So you want to walk through every treatment room, every area that a patient would go through, including the bathrooms, just to do a really good visual check, and think of it like if you were the patient, what would you notice? Things like straightening the chairs, making sure there's no trash anywhere, make sure there's nothing left behind from any patients, like a jacket or whatever it might be. Do a visual check of your lobby and front office. So, you want to make sure that, like I said, the chairs are all straightened, that everything looks as it should. Check the answering service. So a lot of facilities have an answering service that answers your phone calls overnight. So instead of your patient going directly to voicemail, they'll have an answering service that they can actually talk to a real person in case of an emergency. They would be able to triage that person to emergency services. But more often than not, your answering service or your voicemail is just going to be patients saying things like they need to reschedule or cancel, or they might have questions about your facility, and you want to check that before any patients arrive. Review the schedule for the day. So you want to line up and see, okay, who's on the schedule. If you had any messages of cancellation, make sure that the schedule is updated for those things. And then make sure all your patient records for that day's appointments are ready. So if you use paper records, this would be where you could make sure that all those paper records are in order, ready to go for your staff to use. If you do electronic medical records, just make sure that, if you have any new patients, that their medical record is created, ready to go, and that you are just ready for your first patient. So once your operating hours begin, here are the opening facility. So unlock the door that the patients are going to use. Properly display your facility's open sign. Turn on all equipment and lights. Make sure all communication, clerical billing, and clinical equipment is turned on. Check to make sure the thermostat is at an appropriate level. Turn on some soft music, or if your facility has a TV, turn on the TV station that is according to your policy. When you check the answering service, make note of who called, why they called, or your follow-up actions. Make sure to make any schedule changes, and then turn off the answering service. So if you have that service that answers your calls while your hours, while your facility is closed, you want to turn that off so that you get the calls instead. So some phones have a forwarding feature that allows calls to be directed, so you want to turn off that forwarding feature so they don't have any unnecessary wait time. Review the schedule and prepare your medical records. So you want to print, prepare, or post in appropriate locations the schedule for that day. Most facilities, even if they have an electronic record or schedule system, they'll typically still have their front office print a paper schedule for each of their clinicians. Pull and arrange the day's patient records if you're using paper records, and report any suspected breach in patient file confidentially that potentially happened during closing hours. So this is very rare, but it could happen, and you just want to make sure that if you found a breach in patient records, that you report it. And then ensure all new patient forms are ready to be presented to new patients. So once you think you have done everything, you're ready to go, you want to just do a final walkthrough of all the areas to ensure that they're clean and presentable. Supplies are stocked and easily accessible, things like tissues, toilet paper, paper towel, hand sanitizer, whatever your facility uses. Check for any potential safety hazards like cords that someone might trip over or anything like that. Always ask yourself, do I feel welcome and comfortable here? Kind of look at it from the eyes of a patient rather than staff. During service hours, monitor cleanliness of the lobby and front office area. Follow a schedule for bathroom checks. So you want to make sure, again, that everything is stocked, that the bathroom is working correctly, and everything, is in working order. Monitor voicemails for rescheduled or canceled appointments. So if you miss a call or you're on the other line when someone calls and they leave a message and they need to reschedule or cancel, you want to monitor those. Greet patients when they arrive. Again, if you are busy when they come in, even just acknowledging them, looking at them is a good way to make sure that they know that they're welcome. As patients are leaving, make sure you thank them. Say have a good day. All of those things. Keep your schedule on track. So you kind of are the expert about who's coming and going when. And so you want to make sure that things are staying on time. If you have a therapist who is running late or another technician that's running late, and your policy is something like, some facilities have a policy that if a appointment is 15 minutes late, let's say, that the therapist or technician only gets 3 strikes when it comes to taking appointments late. And so it's not something that you want to announce when it happens, but make sure that you make note of it because that is your job to keep your schedule on track. We'll talk more about this when we talk about scheduling appointments. Adjust your medical records and posted schedules if you do have any of those cancellations or reschedules. Closing a facility. So it's the end of your day, and part of your job in the front office is to ensure that the facility is in order before you close. So always leave the facility in the best possible position for the opening staff, even if it means staying late. It is, your job, and it is really important that you do that before you leave. From time to time, you may run into a situation where patients are present at the time you usually start your closing procedures. You should never make a patient feel rushed to leave. Always give them the best customer service possible and wait patiently for their visit to complete before you start closing. So the following tasks should be performed when closing the office. Run reports. Pull your patient charts for the next day if required by your company policy. Secure confidential information in locked cabinets or by password. Log out of your electronic system. However, you keep your patient's health information safe. Shut down any equipment. Clean up the reception area, treatment rooms, the front office. Make sure everything looks just as good as it did when you came in the morning. Set the phone to forward to the answering service. Lock the front door and turn off the lights. If your facility has a security system, like an alarm, you want to make sure that that is set before you leave, and lock the office. So something that I always do whenever I was closing a facility is when I get in my car, I kind of go through this list and I think, okay, I did this, this, and this, and I try to be really intentional as I'm doing the items to be aware that I did it, right? So that when I get in my car, I know for sure that all of those things are done. So we made it to our cool down for this lesson. On your learning log, I want you to fill in the Venn diagram with opening and closing procedures. So list at least 3 steps for each column. What are opening procedures? What are closing procedures? And then what's the overlap? What are both? The responsibility of both the closers and the openers. It was a pleasure to be with you today, and go ahead and have a great rest of your day. Finish that learning log, and I will see you all next week.